listening to Talk from the Heart on WMUZ in Detroit. The Persian Gulf crisis remains something we read about in the newspapers until, of course, somebody we know and somebody we love is called up to active service. I thought that in the midst of all the debate that's going on about the morality of the war, about the strategy of our involvement there, that as we on Talk from the Heart are going to be looking at it more and more carefully in the coming weeks, I thought the way I really want to begin this is to talk about the Persian Gulf crisis with people who are immediately affected by it. And last week, our sales manager here, Rich Newman, came and said, Al, they called Nikki up. And I said, oh, my word. Nikki, in fact, is Rich Newman's wife. She's Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman, 207th Evacuation Hospital. Thank you for coming, Nick. Rich joining me.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, Rich, when you came and told me this, you know, you feel this shot of adrenaline. Now, I felt that. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Right. I felt that. Yeah. And so I can only extrapolate from my sensations to try to imagine what the two of you are feeling at this time.
Well, Nikki was actually in Nashville when I heard it. I heard it coming back from a client on Friday on another radio station that the 207th Evacuation Hospital has been alerted. Yeah. And so there was a million things going through my mind. And I guess the foremost thing was the fact that Nikki didn't know yet because she was still in Nashville. She was flying back that day.
Yeah, isn't that something? Nikki, you have been an OR nurse at Veterans Hospital. First woman and first nurse to join the Michigan National Guard. And currently you are, within the National Guard, supervisor of the operating room. Mm-hmm. And you have been chief nurse in the Michigan National Guard for 13 years. Yeah. You are the mother of 2 children. You're a wife. And you have to ask, did you ever really expect to be called up to active duty like this?
Well, yes, especially as things got a little closer to home. We'd hear about Michigan units that were called up to go, and that was enough to kind of strike the fear of, maybe us.
The fear of Saddam.
And then it would kind of go away. But when I was down in Nashville at this medical conference, there was a Tennessee medical unit that was activated, and also a different type of unit that was activated while we were there. So it was like, this is really striking close to home, and the possibility of being called up was definitely there.
Yeah.
But you still hoped that maybe you'd be bypassed. Especially those of us in the Guard were hoping that the Army Reserve, in fact, might go before we did. Yeah. And we kind of watched for signs that they would be taking those people. And I still don't understand how they choose units. I have no idea all of the planning that goes into that, because we're certainly not in that high a planning point. It was certainly exciting when I came home. I got home about 5:15 on Friday, and my son and Rich stepped out of the garage door as I was pulling my car into the garage, and I thought, oh, how nice to have a loving family that's so happy to see me, because I was gone for a week. And my son comes over, he tries to open the passenger door, and that was locked, so I always drive with it locked. And so he just presses his face against the window there, and he says, Mom, big news. And so Rich was coming around the back of the car, and I opened the door, and my joke was, I thought, well, big news, the biggest thing would be if we were moving. So I said, what, are we moving? Well, little did I know it was only me that would be moving.
And how, when you're called up like this, is there a minimum amount of time that you can expect to be engaged?
Different units, like some of those that have already been sent have only been sent for initially 30 days. Okay. There's one lady at the VA, her husband went, and he was with a unit that went for 30 days, and he's just been extended another 30 days.
Is that true for your unit then?
For myself, our unit was told 180 days with the possibility of 1 year. So that was very hard to take, and I try and focus on 6 months, because a year is just too hard to fathom, being away
I know.
from your family and those you love and your regular routine.
Yeah. I mean, again, it strikes me as so alien emotionally. I mean, the thought, here you are, a mom. A lieutenant colonel, yeah, but a mom, too. Right. And just trying to understand what you're feeling in knowing that if this thing lingers on, and there's good reason to believe it will linger on for a long time to come, you're going to be gone at least 6 months. Right,
and going back to even about a month ago when all of this was really becoming more popular in the news, we were coming back from church one Sunday evening, and the children said, "Well, Mom, would you go if they called you?" And I said, "Well, yes, I would go. That's my duty, and I would want to go if I was needed there. I would hate to think that we could send other people's loved ones, and that the medical people would say, 'Well, I don't want to go. It's kind of spooky over there.' No, it's like my duty to go. This is what I have been trained for, and that's one of the things that you sacrifice." But I said to them, the thing I would really hate more than anything is to be away from having an influence on you guys, because they are 13 and 14. And those are vulnerable years when they go through so much of their emotional development. And now I think that's one of the hardest things for me, is I keep thinking of how much support they need, and I'm not going to be there to give it to them. But I know that our church family is there. They're going to support us. This morning I went to work, and I said goodbye to my fellow employees, and got a real heartwarming show of, sometimes I got 3 and 4 hugs from the same person, and lots of tears, and they told me they loved me and they cared, and they said to let Rich know if there was anything they could do for him and what could they send. And I realized that for me to have gone to say goodbye to them was just as important for them to have me there to say goodbye. Yeah. And you realize that these are emotional things that you have to work through and experience, no matter how difficult they are. It's very, what's the word I want? It's a good, both of the parties need it, and they need to know that there's something that they can do.
Rich, if unless this crisis ends shortly, you're going to be a single parent for 6 months at least. Yeah. I've come to know you as a coworker, and we're together. We work on accounts together, and we talk with people. And I've come to know you as a very competent man, but I don't know you much as a dad. You know what I'm saying? And here you are, all of a sudden. Did you really tell me? Did you really think that this was how real a possibility was this for you?
Well, I think it came to the forefront when President Bush said they were going to activate another 150,000 troops. So we had kind of superficially talked about it, that there may be a good possibility, that her unit would go, because it is a hospital unit, and they sure would need that over there if there's an outbreak of war, So we talked about it, superficially a little bit. We talked a little bit to the kids, once in a while about the possibility of Nikki going and all that. But, the thing that's really blessed my heart is the fact of I'm a pretty domesticated person. I do everything around the house. I cook and...
Not that I don't do anything.
Right. you took the words right out of my mouth. I was waiting for that one.
It's and my attitude about a marriage, and our marriage in particular, has been that, it's a 50-50 partnership, and I am married to a working wife. Yeah. So I have the responsibility to help her out as much as I can. So I've done that over our 17 years of marriage. Yeah. Vacuuming, washing, cooking, and all that. And it's worked out very, very well. So that aspect, I have no problem with it. The confidence is there to do that. But But I think, you say you can do this, but 6 months is a long time. So the thing that I'm really thankful for is our church family and the love and the concern and the support that they're going to give me and the kids. But also, as Nikki had mentioned at the VA, those people as well, even though they're not saved people, they're concerned. They liked her. They worked with her for so long that they said, that they would be a support group for us as well. Plus the Army. We went to a meeting last night at the Armory, and there is a support group that is being formed that will take care of the dependents who are at home. So there's really a lot of support that's available to me and to the children. So it's going to be tough for Nikki to be gone. Yeah. But we just thank the Lord there is that support group. And I think most of it will probably come from our church family, of course. Yeah.
The Persian Gulf crisis isn't just in the papers. It's in the lives of families throughout Michigan. I'm talking with Rich and Nikki Newman. Nikki just received word last week. Her unit had been activated. She'll be, my notes here tell me that you'll be leaving this week for a minimum of 6 months.
Yes, on Sunday.
Some of you may have questions and would like to enter the conversation. I would love that. I'd like to broaden the discussion. So let's do so at 272-4111. That's 272-4111. We're coming up to 2:14 this afternoon. I'm talking with Nikki and Rich Newman. And Nikki, Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman of the 207th Evacuation Hospital, has been, your unit has been activated. Now, do you know exactly where you're going to be going?
No, we don't know what our final destination will be, except that we are going to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, and we will be leaving on Sunday. And that's the information that we have. We will be told at some point when we're at Fort McCoy as to our final destination.
Any rumors flying around? Any hints?
Oh, well, we read between the lines, and we ask our superiors if they have any idea. And a lot of times just reading that body language gives you the sense that there's something they know that they don't want to tell you. And besides, they can't, because there is still so much planning going on that things could change from what they even think we are.
Are they telling you to take lots of water and sunglasses?
Sunglasses,
Sunglasses.
2 pair.
2 pair. Yeah, that might be a significant reference.
I thought so.
Our number is 272-4111. William in Detroit will be talking with you. The number again, 272-4111. And this is Talk from the Heart on WMUZ. My guests, again, Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman, her husband Rich. This is a reversal of roles, in a sense. Usually the image we have is the men are called up and they go off to war. In this case, it's the mom who's going off to war. That's strange. Does that strike you as strange? I don't mean strange in a bad way, just odd.
Yeah, but
you feel odd?
No, because we've been doing it for so long, Al.
That's a good point.
That's right.
That's a good point.
But we would go to the National Guard would have an annual dinner or whatever.
Yeah. And
over the years, we have gone to that every year. But I have gotten support. Nikki has been involved with men who joined when she did. Now they're generals and they're full-bird colonels. But they come up to me and they thank me for the support I've given her over the years. And it's really refreshing to hear that, and it makes you feel good to know that you've supported your wife, in this endeavor.
Yeah. Discrimination in the military, Nikki?
Well, I would say so. It's getting less, but as with all movements and things where people are more conscious of issues, they all take time.
Yeah.
And it has been a difficult road being in the military, and so often I used to come home so frustrated and just near to tears, and I would just say to Rich, I don't understand it. See, when I was first joined the military, being the first woman, there was an awful lot of resentment that I felt from the men there, even though I'm not the kind to come in and bully my way around and say, hey, we're going to do it this way now. I don't care how you've been doing it.
Yeah, you certainly are not the image of the shrill, yelling feminist.
I know. Everybody's always surprised that I'm a soldier.
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to come home quite frustrated, but back then, these men that were part of the hospital headquarters were the kind that had the typical old-fashioned kind of families now that we think of, where the husband worked and the wife stayed home, and she did all the cooking and cleaning and took care of things, and they were the one that made the husband made the decision in the family. So there was a real resentment. Even when they would have parties, they would invite everybody else in the headquarters staff except me, and it was like, well, it's simply got to be that I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And but it's just that they would not work with me. They just kind of left me to. If I faltered, fine. If I did well, fine. But they weren't the support system.
Yeah.
So I would come home and tell Rich, and he would always be there to reinforce me and say, well, you really are doing a fine job, and I don't know how they'd work without you. And he always used to lift me up. And without him being there, there's no way I would have put in all those years.
Is that so?
Right.
So it was that difficult?
It was that difficult. And now my experience is, of course, different from other women because...
Well, you pioneered it in Michigan.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Now, let me ask a question about people's attitudes. Here we have a crisis. It's huge, mobilization. We've not seen anything like this. Even during the Vietnam War, it wasn't this large, right? I mean, this is the greatest military buildup we've had since the Second World War.
Yeah.
And nobody can avoid knowing that war is possible here. Some people are even saying it's probable, and even others are saying it's inevitable. What happens with people's attitudes towards God at times like this? Does this make people more cynical in the military? Does it make them more hardened, or do they begin rethinking the relationship with God? Do they get hard or do they get soft, I guess is the question I'm asking.
It's been very interesting to watch all of this, especially as a Christian.
Yeah.
I've been a Christian since I was 13. And on Saturday we went in and there were a lot of questions. Everybody feeling a lot of anxiety because of no information yet. So you didn't have anything to grasp onto and start forming plans with. And there was a lot of joking going on about, like the chief nurse would walk in and say, hey, what are you guys doing? And they'd say, we're praying. So there was a lot of joking about we're praying. And one time one of the girls said, and Nikki, go ahead, you pray. And they do see me as a spiritual leader because, you know how, having been a Christian too this long, I know how God works. And there was a point where I started thinking about it would be nice to have a Bible study at the Armory on weekends, even though we do have a chaplain who comes. This would just be a smaller, more intimate group. And as I was thinking about that, I kind of got caught up in the logistics, and I thought, well, how could you ever manage that, and where would you fit the time in? And I'm thinking about, well, a man should be the one who leads that. I mean, I guess we're Baptists, we kind of go along with that, Anyway, the Lord spoke to another fine Christian nurse that's in my unit. His name is Vito. And one day Vito came up to me and said, say, Nikki, what do you think about having a Bible study? And I said, yep. I said, let's do it. I said, the Lord's laid it on my heart. I've been thinking about it, and I didn't know how to go about it. And you are a man, and you mentioned it. I said, it's time. So we had a Bible study, in fact, this Sunday, and Vito and I were the first two up in the room. We held it for 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By 5 after 1, nobody was there except Vito and myself. And a little later, another Christian gal came up, Jan, and she was sitting there. And it's like, okay, all three of us knew that we were born again. And there we sat, and then we said, well, maybe we should just have a Bible study that just to encourage ourselves and pray for strength for us. And then in came one more nurse that we knew hadn't accepted Christ yet, and we said, well, okay, there's 4 of us now, we can go ahead and get started. And, the daily breads
Sure,
that are
from Radio
out.
Bible Class?
Right.
Very
They are
fine.
so excellent.
They are.
And they
excellent.
had an article from November the 8th. It was based on Psalms chapter 6. And it was about David during his time of trial and how he felt. So I read that one, even though it was for November the 8th. And it was when you're feeling down under, I believe was the name of it. And we read that through, and we read through the Bible scriptures that were interspersed in that. And it was really a good time of uplifting and remembering the promises that God has made to us. And I did say that, everybody can read the Bible and feel then that they have a sense of peace. But these promises are really for that child that knows the Lord as their Savior, because they're going to have a deeper sense of all of these promises. And when this was all over, and we just shared feelings about the crisis that we were feeling in our own lives, we just did a lot of sharing. When it was time to close, Vito began in prayer, and I prayed, and then Bob prayed a prayer that he accepted Christ. And it was very exciting. We said,
That is.
man, this is worth it.
Yeah.
And so this crisis with the Gulf and all of that, the Gulf crisis, has already had some positive effects, and I'm sure that there are going to be other positive things that come out of this. And so we're grateful that the Lord has begun to use us, and we're thrilled.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is focus on opportunities, not look at sacrifice and pity myself, but to look at the Lord will give us strength, and how can He use me and the other fellow Christians that are going over there.
Even to aspire to such a thing is itself already the grace of God working.
Amen.
Yes, it is.
preparing you. You're listening to Talk from the Heart on WMUZ. I'm Al Kresta. Our number, 272-4111. William in Detroit, I'm sorry we lost you. If you want to call back, I'll take you right up at 272-4111. Talking with Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman and her husband, Rich Newman, who is our sales manager here at WMUZ. As I mentioned earlier, Nikki has been called up. She's with the National Guard, has been called up, and will be going to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. And final destination, unknown. So, is there any significance, Nikki, that medical units are being called up? I mean, does this mean imminent crisis there? Or?
Well, the more types of units that are, the more people, basically, that's all, I guess, the bottom line. The more people that are sent over there, the more medical problems you're going to have to be addressed.
Okay.
And so you've got to send medical people to support those, even if there becomes no crisis, just merely taking care of them with their health problems or injuries that they may get just getting their job done.
So you've been trained, though, in evacuation. Is that right? I mean, is that special?
Evacuation is just the name of a hospital that's further back from the
Front lines.
yeah, the front lines. I forget its
MASH.
its
MASH
correct
unit?
name eludes me at the moment, but the forward line, and then you have a clearing company that's there, and your medic, and then we're supposed to be further back where we give more definitive care to patients that's pretty all-inclusive,
Okay.
and they can stay with us for several weeks because we're not a very mobile unit. We do have 400 beds,
Okay.
and we take up many acres when we're all spread out, and so it'd be
So
hard.
this, your unit is needed there, even if there's not immediate bloodshed.
That's correct.
Just because you have to have hospital facilities when you've got close to 500,000 people.
Right.
People are going to get sick,
Right.
and things are going to happen.
In fact, it was interesting that the biggest problem I've been told that they're having over there is pneumonia, because it's yeah, I know it was shocking,
Why?
but it's so hot in the daytime, but now the temperatures are cooling. They get into the 50s and 60s at night because the sand doesn't hold any heat.
I see.
And I suppose with no mountains and stuff to to keep the winds from blowing. I imagine it does get pretty cold there.
Huh. What can listeners do, our listeners do, for servicemen, for servicewomen that are over there, or people like yourself who are going to be in the States for heaven knows how long, but then could be shipped out? I mean, how do we keep track of this, and what kind of support do people need? What's good?
Oh, well, I have just a myriad list here of all kinds of things that I was able to find out that people do need over there. And I don't know if it's probably too long to read, so I'll just read.
Yeah, just give us some of the
maybe the
representative
most
items.
important things. And one of the best things they can do is to write letters and send pictures of yourself to the guys. They say they really like that because it makes it personable.
Okay.
And then scenes of anything which represents home, posters.
Postcards?
Posters, postcards, maps, and anything with greenery and water. Anything that looks real refreshing.
Yeah.
Also, the plastic bottles that have the screw top lids and the straws that are so popular now.
Oh, yeah.
Those are fantastic because they can take the pre-sweetened Kool-Aid or whatever they've got and swish it around in there and drink it without needing a separate utensil. They can, it'll be... Okay, and another important thing is the not to send anything that's got pornographic materials or even Playboy pinups because this is against Saudi law.
Okay.
But it's very important for people to know they can send religious materials if it is sent directly to a soldier that's based on a U.S. military base. They will be able to get religious materials there now.
I see. If they're sent directly to the person.
Right.
Now, there were rumors going around, we had heard them here, that Bibles were forbidden or Christian literature was forbidden.
Right.
Do you know how those rumors would have started?
No, I think that's before we had as many people over there as we've got. And, things how when they're just getting started are not well organized.
Okay.
And probably... I would think that the Saudi people were opening those boxes and checking them because they had told us, too, don't send any pork or religious materials or that box of contents won't get to those people. Mm-hmm. But I think that now they've been there long enough that things are more cohesive and directed, and the mail is getting directly to that person.
Okay.
In fact, there was a problem with mail, and I had heard that there was weeks that it was taking for packages to get over there. But I just learned today from someone who has a son over there that the letters have been arriving in 8 to 10 days, and packages were arriving in 2 to 3 weeks.
I'm talking with Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman. She has been called to active duty, and she has been really sharing some fascinating things. We've looked at... really the personal dimension of this. We haven't been debating strategy in the Middle East right now. We'll leave that for another show. But we certainly are talking about the human side of this, the idea of moms being called up to serve. She has children ages 13 and 14. Her husband, Rich, is a friend of mine here, a co-worker at WMUZ. He's our sales manager, in fact. And we're just ruminating about the kind of experience that Nikki and Rich are going through. And I'm interested in getting you involved in the discussion, in the comments. You may have questions as well. In fact, you may be experiencing this as well and would like to share a little bit of what you're going through, how this represents, how this military crisis represents such a disruption to family and home life, to careers. Give us a call, 272-4111. It's 2:41, and it's Tuesday afternoon this Thanksgiving week, and I hope you're planning to have just a marvelous time. I bet you this is going to be a significant Thanksgiving for you, huh?
Indeed it is.
Yeah.
We'll never forget it.
Yeah.
In fact, can I tell you that I see how the Lord has been working. My mom and dad have never had a Thanksgiving with us since I left home for nursing school. And all these 17 years we've been married. So it's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
And finally, my mom and dad agreed to come and have Thanksgiving with us.
This year.
And when this happened, I called, and at first I thought, no, we won't have Thanksgiving with them. We'll spare them that, because I couldn't put on the spread that I was planning. But then I got to thinking, what is really important? Is it the lavish spread you can put on, or is it really spending time with people that are important to you? And so we discussed that they're going to come, and we're going to have a real memorable Thanksgiving, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good. When do you actually leave?
Sunday.
Sunday. So you do
Yes.
have most of the weekend then.
Yes, but we don't know what day they'll stop us from coming home from the armory. See, Wednesday we're put on active duty, but we needed the East State Armory.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Yes,
right.
Tomorrow.
You're on active duty tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I got you here just in a nick of time.
Yes.
We have one open line at 272-4111. I can see one open line remaining. Let's go to Chris in Holly. Chris, welcome to Talk from the Heart.
Hi, Al.
Hi, Chris.
And Nikki and Rich.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling because I guess more than anything, I will really be remembering you, Nikki and Rich,
Thank you.
in prayer. And I'd like to ask for prayer. I'm in the Army Reserve in a unit in Pontiac, and we're a training unit, so we're really not at a great risk to be called up unless we do go to war. Then we probably will be called. And I have 3 small children. They're 3 and 2 and 5 months. And I was just given the opportunity to go into the individual ready reserve for a while. And that means that if my unit were to be called up, I would not be called up.
Right.
It also means that in the future, if I choose to go back into inactive reserves, drilling every month, I can do that. And I'm really torn because I feel a real strong obligation as a reservist. On the other hand, a real strong obligation as a mother.
That's right.
And you know, I just don't know what's going to happen. I'm just so afraid right now that I'm going to have to leave my children, and I don't know.
How old are they, Chris?
They're 3 and 2 and 5 months.
Yes, I understand exactly where you're coming from, because that was and is my my greatest sacrifice, is leaving them.
Yeah.
And as you heard me talk about Vito earlier, I think he has a greater sacrifice. I was just telling my husband this morning as we were getting ready to go our separate ways, and I said, you know, I think Vito has a tougher time. He has 5 children, and his baby is only several months old. And I said, I think that it's, if you can compare feelings of remorse, then his has got to be a greater sacrifice than mine.
Right.
Because the younger they are, I think the more it kind of tears at your heartstrings about leaving them.
That's interesting.
Right.
That's interesting. Well, Chris, I wish you the best, and maybe it's maybe you won't have to face this, huh?
Yeah.
You might not have to.
But you can be a prayer warrior, and that's a very vital job.
You know,
Oh, I will be. You better believe it.
Chris, one of the things that's really helped us is we have really claimed some scriptures from God's Word that give us a peace and strength. And like Nikki was mentioning her Bible study on Sunday, she asked me on Saturday night to list several scriptures about, what was it, honey? Comfort, strength, that the Lord promises us. And so we did that, and she used that in her Bible study. But there's been scriptures that we've claimed for ourselves while she's gone. And it's a real source of strength and encouragement. And you know, God is our strength. The Lord is our strength. Because, you know, we don't know what tomorrow holds. We're only here today because of God's grace. our lives are in his hands, and that's the way we have to look at it.
Right.
Chris, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
My guest again, Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman, and her husband Rich Newman, who's sales manager here at WMUZ, and we were just hit. So many of us who work here were just hit last week when Rich told us that his wife and the mother of their two children, ages 13 and 14, was called up for active duty, and with the Persian Gulf crisis looming before us, it just brings us so close to home. And I thought today we wanted to deal with this not so much as an issue, but as something which is affecting our friends and relatives. Now, let's go to Vicki in Dearborn. Hi, Vicki.
How you doing?
Good.
I'm calling because I have a couple different troops of Girl Scouts and Brownies who would like to send some cards and pictures over for the holidays, but we don't have a street address to mail them to.
Oh, you don't need one. You can just send it to... You have the name of the units that you want to send them to?
No, just anyone in general who needs to be cheered up.
Oh, okay. I do have the name of 2 Michigan units that are already over there in Saudi Arabia.
Good.
And these are their addresses.
Good.
The 1461st Transportation Company.
Okay.
Then the next line put Commander. And then APO, New York, 09848.
Okay, and the other?
Is the 460th Supply and Service Company.
Great.
Then the same thing, Commander and APO New York 09848.
All right, and thank you very much for giving us ideas of sending along possibly school pictures.
Well, there's a forever long list. In fact, flea collars, is that a strange thing to mention? There are actually flea collars.
But listen,
The
why,
soldiers
though?
can wear them on their boots because of the sand fleas.
Okay.
And you want to hear
girls will
another
love that.
funny thing is
Yes?
pantyhose. I laughed. I said, pantyhose for men too? They said, yes. And I said, well, they would be awfully hot. They said, yeah, but it keeps the fleas from biting through.
Is that so?
So I just was trying to
Thought maybe
picture
Joe
a
Namath
size.
had a number of disciples over there.
Yes, right.
Well, I'll have a hard time explaining that to the kids, but I think they'll get a good laugh.
Well, then something simpler like skin cream, something that will help dry skin.
All right, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
information.
Okay.
How oppressive are the conditions over there? I mean, physical
Oppressive?
conditions. Yeah, I mean, just the weather. I mean, you're talking about men wearing pantyhose. It's got to be pretty bad, I'll tell you.
Yes. I think that it's pretty bleak because of this other list that I have that I didn't get to read. It was like, send them anything that's battery operated. Now, you know that means they don't have electrical access.
Yeah.
And so everything is, just kind of like what they can carry. And even a light switch stick to the wall, they're battery operated. And what was I thinking of saying? Oh, that they don't have any stores there or facilities to shop at. And that even the women with the feminine needs that they have, there is no source over there for getting supplies. So they're very dependent on whoever sends things for them from over here.
Well, let's certainly respond because, again, this is even if there's not a shot fired per se, this is still grimy, grisly work, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. You're listening to Talk from the Heart on WMUZ in Detroit. Let's head over to Farmington. Megan, you there?
Hi, Al.
Is it Megan or Megan?
Megan.
Good. I just wanted to make sure Kathy Schiffer's using the right
She did. She did a
phonetic
great job.
symbols. Okay.
I have to tell you how much I appreciate your programming today because it's so personal, and there are so many families that are going through all these questions and all
Yeah.
these emotions,
That's what I thought, too.
and no one's done this, so thank you. I appreciate that. I have a brother-in-law who's 33. He's been in the Army for 10 years. Now, this is, not unlike other stories. They're all pretty sad. He was in his last year, and he's thinking about what he's going to do with his life when he gets out of the Army. So in July, he and his wife decided he's a recruiter for the Army. And in July, he said, why don't we, for our last year, move so we can get a house? They'd been in Detroit recruiting for a couple of years. So they transferred, and they transferred to Kentucky. So in August, they went for training in Kentucky. And when he was just finishing up training for his last year to find out what he was going to be doing in Kentucky, they gave him his transfer to Saudi Arabia. His wife had just gotten pregnant because she figured we're going to be buying a house in Kentucky now and settling down finally after 10 years in the Army. So she's pregnant. She moved home to Chicago where her parents are, thinking that that would probably be more secure than staying in Detroit where the support system isn't real strong. And she heard from her husband 3 weeks ago. He called from Saudi Arabia, and she said the phone connection was really good. And he said he would be coming home at Christmas permanently. And so she was really excited. She thought, well, that was the first she had heard anything like this. Well, she just received a letter Saturday from him saying, no, now there's rumors that they're going to be sending him to another country, to another continent, that he will come home for Christmas for a few weeks, but then he's gone again to a country that I probably shouldn't mention. But it's not Saudi Arabia, and it's not the United States. So they're going through a lot, too, and this is her first pregnancy, and she is just,
riding the roller coaster.
We're just lifting her up with prayer. That's anything, really, and you're right about being prayer warriors. That is the number one strength that we have at home, that we can offer everyone over there, because it's not easy.
Right.
But
Megan, thanks.
Well, thank you, Al. Thanks again. This is really comforting for me to hear all the people sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Janine in Detroit, you're on Talk from the Heart.
Yes, Al. I'm calling. My daughter just turned 18, and she joined the Army Reserve. She joined right before this invasion took place to get her college education. And she's stationed now. She just finished basic training, and she's in Texas, finishing her. She's in the medical unit. And so we just got a call. She was supposed to be coming home for Christmas, and we just got a call Saturday that she may not get a chance to come home. They're speeding up their training and possibly sending them to Kuwait. And you know what, my husband and I were very upset because we were looking forward to at least seeing her at Christmas time. And, she just turned 18.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And she just called me to find out if I heard whether that rumor was true, that the medical units would be sent. And so I was just calling. I heard your broadcast, and I was just calling to find out, is it all the medical units that will be going, or?
Nick, what do you know?
That's only something that those in the higher echelons will determine, so nobody can know that at this time. I would think that your best indication would be just watching the news and what you can gather from that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Janine, wish you the best.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Nikki, I'm wondering, here's your life, Rich, your life's being disrupted, and maybe you both have different answers for this too. So I want you to feel free to just be straight with me. Saddam Hussein, does he become an incarnation of evil? I mean, for you, do you think of him? You know what I'm saying? Do you sense? Is this do you feel that? Do you have any relationship with this guy now? I mean, well, how do you?
I think Al, it's a good question. I think yes. We can take what he did personally.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I look at as well, is that yes, it is going to disrupt our family in a big way. But we're not the only ones involved. I think of the other families as well, and my heart goes out to them.
Yeah.
Because Nikki's unit, there's 500 people. And this is going to affect 500 people there.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 units that have come out of Michigan, those folks as well. But it's a global thing. It's just not the United States. The world is involved in this thing.
Yeah.
So yes, I take it personally, but I look at it as he's disrupted the world in what he did. Yeah. What he did was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I forget the lady's name, but she said the invasion. Well, it wasn't an invasion. We were invited to come by Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
And I think we're protecting world interests there, not only the Americans, but the other countries who were there, they see it as a devastating thing that he's done.
Yeah.
Now,
Saddam Hussein.
For myself, I think that I think of the story in Esther where the Israelites finally got the upper hand and were able to, this is all making the story short, of course, but where the Bible says that the Israelites went out and slew so many of the enemy, and the Bible doesn't mention how many of the Israelites were wounded or knocked off. And so I tend to think of the Americans or anybody supporting the good over there as being like the Israelites, and Saddam Hussein being the evil one that needs to be knocked out. Especially what tore my heart out was when I read the congressional testimony of a woman who was married to a Kuwaiti, and she came back and told of the atrocities, and they were against children. And I said, oh, how could God ever forgive something like that? I mean, you can see it maybe to adults, but to helpless children is just unbelievable. Their thoughts of human life and how they treat each other.
Do you think, as you engage in this, though, do you think, well, I've been called up to active duty, and I'm going to do my duty. I mean, I'm a responsible adult. I'm going to go do my duty. Or do you sense, do you also have a personal sense of, I want to be part of knocking this guy off? Do you understand the difference? One is I mean, you've been in the Guard for 17 years now?
Right.
Yeah. And so you've been engaged in, the military for a while, and it's become part of your life, as you mentioned earlier. And so here's another one. It's more demanding. It's more disruptive than anything before. And so you do it. But do you take any personal satisfaction in also being part of a force which is going to perhaps knock off Saddam Hussein? Do you understand the distinction I'm making?
Yes, and I think of how when God says in the Bible that he puts those in power, that whom he chooses, whether they be good or evil. Yeah. And Saddam Hussein is there because of God's plan, and we don't know how that scenario is going to work out.
Okay.
However, I do not focus on him so much as being a nurse. I think about the soldier who is going to be wounded and who is going to need somebody there who can help them get through a great time of turmoil in their life. So Saddam Hussein is somewhat incidental to me, as opposed to my...
How do you, as you process this in your mind, see your role and how do you stay motivated and everything? And it's again primarily in service to the men and women who are over there. Yeah. Okay. You're listening to Talk from the Heart on WMUZ to Royal Oak. Hello, Mike.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I just turned the radio on, and I was listening to whoever you have on there. I don't know who it is. And I was wondering, I've heard a lot of people say it's okay for the United States to be in the Middle East. They compare Israel to the United States. And Israel had times when it went to war, and I've heard people justify, the United States going to war in the Middle East just as Israel did. And the problem that I've been having with that is Israel was a nation that was blessed by God, and I really think that when the United States was first formed, that we were blessed by God, but I look at us now, and I think we're a very godless nation in general. And I was just wondering, I mean, I can't see us being comparable to Israel now.
Well, I don't think that when Nikki referred to Israel, this was analogous. She wasn't drawing any identification of America as the new chosen nation or anything. No. She was talking about basic conflicts between good and evil. And in a particular war, while there are, I'm sure, always lots of gray areas, yet you've got to come to a conviction whether you're engaged in a just cause or not. And in this case, I believe that we are justly over there. You see?
Okay.
Now, I know there are people who disagree with me on that. But right now I think we are justly over there. Now, that's short of saying that we are justified in firing the first shot. And those are issues that we will continue to talk about on Talk from the Heart. Now is not the best time to do so because we're running out of time, first of all, and I don't have time to go over the whole just war criteria, and again, we're going to debate this next week. I think we're going to have, I think Bishop Gumbleton is going to be on with us, and we're also talking with Herb Titus down at Regent University to come on, and they have differing positions on this, and going to let them draw it out here on the show. But I think right now, just to make it short, from my standpoint, there's a lot at stake here, and it's I am not one of those people who cynically believe that we're in there for oil. Nor do I believe that we're over there just to preserve a fat and cushy lifestyle.
Right.
I think that, again, personally, I think that the greatest justification for us being over there is that the way this incident is handled is going to determine how international affairs are conducted in the post-Cold War. This has a lot to do with preserving peace over the long haul internationally. And then there are subordinate considerations, such as Saddam Hussein and the injustice that he's already perpetrated, the invasion of Kuwait itself. All of those things have to be factored in. But if you were to boil it down for me, personally, I think you've got to consider the fact that the way this is handled is setting a precedent for how international crises are going to be handled in the post-Cold War. That's my approach.
So you're almost, we're going to lose more if we take a loss in the short run, it's going to be better in the long run.
I'm not sure I follow you.
Okay, if we go to war now...
first of all, we aren't talking about going to war. We haven't gotten that far yet.
Being there now...
This is a powerful police force, is the way I'm looking at it.
Okay, all right. So you're saying our actions now are going to make things better in the long run?
Well, I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And I would assume I'm sure all of us have different colorations in our arguments for why we would believe this, but I think we're united. The three of us who are here are united in thinking that this is a just cause.
If we do go into combat, how do you personally feel about combat? I'm curious.
You asking me?
Yeah.
Because Kathy said that your question was to me. That's the reason I'm answering at length.
Or anyone there can answer.
Again, combat, it depends on provocation. I personally, what I would like is a UN resolution which approves the use of force to expel Saddam Hussein from Kuwait. I would prefer a UN resolution to that effect. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm waiting. Gorbachev now says that he doesn't support the use of force at this stage of the game. I know China is weak on it. We'll have to see.
The reason I asked, all right, I'm 19, and so I'll be eligible for the draft if they reinstate the draft.
Yeah.
And just, I haven't thought about it a lot, I haven't prayed about it a lot, but just off the top of my head, I'd have a problem going to war. I'd have a problem, killing someone, and you consider cost and all those kinds of things, but still, I have a problem going over to Saudi Arabia and killing complete strangers.
Yeah, well, it's something I suppose you have to think through if you're going to. I mean, the one wonderful thing about the United States and the Christian tradition is that there is a place for conscientious objection, and if sincerely held, and there's also the Christian tradition has something called the just war criteria. So there are things that you can think through, but you've got to ask yourself, what is the role of government? And certainly one of the roles of government is to protect the innocent. And the scriptures give human government the power of the sword. So, I don't like the pacifist option. I think in the long run it does great injustice to other human beings. And as far as killing strangers goes, if somebody breaks into my house and begins to slap my daughter around, I want to do more than take off his head. I want to mutilate him. I want him gone.
I guess my question to you would be, what would Jesus do in that position?
I think he'd take off with his head.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm quite certain of it, in fact.
I mean, by his lifestyle, you think that's what Jesus would do?
Jesus is going to do something far worse. He's going to send people to hell.
Mm-hmm.
He picked up a whip in the temple and threatened violence.
Can you give me a scripture to back that up?
Sure. John, John chapter 2, I believe.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you've got to, again, that Jesus is the God who commanded Joshua into Canaan.
This is true, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry to end I appreciate your question. It's an excellent one. I think I've given it too much time for today's show, Mike, and I want you to call back in the future, though.
All right.
Where I feel as though I can give you the attention you deserve, and your question, the kind of extended response that it deserves.
Okay.
You see?
All right.
But, you know, life is tough. It's a fallen world, a corrupted world.
What's a good time for you?
Between 1 and 4. Monday through Friday, but pick, when we do this topic again.
Okay.
All righty?
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
All right, bye-bye.
And, Nikki, you've been in the military for a while. How do you feel when you hear people who are ambivalent about the use of force?
Well, I guess it's, peace is wonderful and it is nice. But that's kind of utopia, and this is the reality of life. There will always be someone who wants power over another, and I, too, see this as not something where we're fighting over oil or the price we're going to pay for gasoline. This is over power, and Saddam Hussein wants power. Does anybody out there think that he would stop at Kuwait if he didn't have to? No, he would take over them, and he would move on to conquer more nations. And also, do they think that they would experience the peaceable life they live now with all the freedom of choice that they've got? Absolutely not. I mean, the world would be radically changed, even here in the United States, if he got all the control of the oil. It's that who has what you need that controls your life.
And history brings certain nations to positions of responsibility, just like the oldest brother in a family ends up with certain responsibilities he doesn't want. And I know that because I am the oldest brother in my family. And it seems to me the United States is in a similar position here. History, destiny has said to us, listen, this is the world you're living in. How are you going to respond? So I do think that we're justified in being over there at this time. And I'm hoping, of course, that the process will remain peaceful,
right,
and that there will be a non-bloody solution to this. And there's no way I could wish otherwise sitting across from the two of you.
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's our prayer too, Al.
That's right.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Nikki Newman, Rich Newman, friend and co-worker, thank you for joining me today. It's been very helpful.
Great, thanks.
And
Thank you.
I know that with Rich working with me here, I'll be kept abreast of what you're doing, Nikki. So.
Yes, and it's wonderful to know that he has a fine, loving family here that supports him. You're just an extended family from us, and I appreciate that, and it's going to give me comfort.
Yeah. Well, thank you for serving us.
Thank you.
You're listening to Talk from the Heart.